Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at the 2022 House elections and Nate Silver's prediction for these elections, as well as what I think is going to happen. So we're just going to dive right into it and take a look at this prediction. So as you can see, it is just the top line is very good for Republicans. They're favored to win the House at about 86%. And that's very good, obviously. You always want to be in the driver's seat, but especially in a driver's seat as large as this. So, yeah, the Republicans are, both in my forecast and in Nate Silver's forecast, clearly favored to win the House. So, I guess, unlike in the Senate, we do seem to agree that the Republicans have a clear advantage here. And so in this video, it'll be less me kind of ranting about why I disagree with him, because me and Nate Silver disagree on, or Nate Silver and I disagree on all four of the major Senate races. He has the Democrats winning Pennsylvania and Arizona. I've got them winning Nevada and Georgia instead. And so we kind of traded off those seats, but the average is the same. Although Nate Silver gives the Democrats a 47% chance of winning the Senate, which I think is very high. But yeah, in today's video, we'll be looking at the individual competitive House races. So if you don't know all of them, that's fine, because I have a handy Battleground Map pulled up. I did a Battleground Map yesterday. I think it came out 2 days ago or 3 days ago, or something like that. And I think it had 41 battlegrounds. I added and removed some because I want to take it. I kind of just handpicked seats that I wanted to look at in this video. So, but it's mostly the same set of seats if that's what you're concerned about. And then I guess we'll also be looking at the 2020 House forecast from 538, and it wasn't really that good. The Democrats ended up winning 222 House seats. They only gave that about a 1% chance of happening. It was only, it didn't fall between the confidence interval of 80%, because it really did not, it didn't accurately really reflect the what they were expecting. It was much more favorable to Republicans than really anyone thought, including myself. And so I guess I can't really slander Nate Silver that much for it, but I do really think it was quite the, I think it was very, very, very generous to Democrats in many cases. And so as you can see right here, their average outcome was Democrats getting 239 seats. That missed by an average of 17, 18 seats. So not great. And that actually only gave the GOP a 3% chance of winning control of the House, when the actual outcome, like the Republicans, in retrospect, probably had like a 30 to 35% chance of winning the House. So they did really underestimate the GOP in the House. And, the fact that they're giving them an 86% chance of winning the House is very, very good for them. So, yeah, I think that is about it for the preview. We'll take a look at these seats now. So we're going to work our way here. Start with Maine's 2nd District, where it is a pure toss-up in Jared Golden's district. He's the Democratic incumbent. And when you look at the chances of victory, it's kind of fluctuating. Bruce Poliquin held a pretty solid lead, and it's now kind of down to just a 2 percentage point lead. And I think their projected vote share here is about, they don't have it here. Okay, well, their projected vote share, they show it over here anyways, is Golden winning by, Poliquin winning by 0.1%. So it's incredibly close. And I really disagree. I don't think it'll be that close. I think Golden's going to lose by 8 or 9%. I really think that it's not going to be that close. And when you look at New Hampshire in the 1st District, they've got Papa's flowered over Matt Mowers by 2%. I've got Matt Mowers winning by the slimmest of margins, although I agree that Custer's going to edge it out against Robert Burns. They've got Custer ahead by about 7 points. I've got her ahead by 3. So I'm a little more generous to Republicans than 538 is. Massachusetts, nothing going on there. Connecticut, interestingly enough, they do have a toss-up race, Johanna Hayes' district, which I don't really see. I've got it as likely Democratic. I think she's going to win by 8 or 9. I don't think it'll be too close, because I think the Connecticut Republicans are going to underperform. Then you look at this district over here, which is, I think, the 2nd District, with Joe Courtney, the incumbent. They've got Joe Courtney losing by 5% or winning by 5%. I think he'll win by a bit more than that. Rhode Island, this is the 2nd District, which I don't even have as a battleground, actually. Alan Fung is a good candidate for the GOP, and he was up in a few polls, but again, if you're trusting the Rhode Island polls, then you're also trusting a lot of other polls that are equally ludicrous. So I don't think that the Democrats are really going to have much of a problem here. New Jersey, we'll look at that. So Josh Gottheimer, Frank Pallotta. This is actually pretty generous to Gottheimer. I've only got him ahead by, I think, 4 or 5%, which, again, that is this is that's 5th District right here. So I've only got him ahead. by 4 or 5%. Then they have Tom Keene beating Tom Malinowski by only 3%. And you got to remember, Malinowski ran 11 points behind Biden in 2020, so he's not by any means a good incumbent. And Keene's a really good candidate, so I think he'll win by probably 7 or 8%. And then talk about Pallone, talk about Mickey Sherrill, where she is. Interestingly enough, they have Andy Kim as only up by 6. I've got him winning by a lot more. So kind of a mixed bag in New Jersey. We'll go to New York next. And so starting with the 19th district, they have Mark Molinaro winning by about 5%, which is quite the interesting result here because this was a Biden plus 6.5 seat. They're really counting on to swing a lot in this election. So I've got the Republicans favored here. I don't disagree, but I think that's quite the swing. New York 18, Colin Schmidt, Pat Ryan. This will be a very close race. They've got Colin Schmidt narrowly beating Pat Ryan. I think it'll be close too, and I think Ryan's going to lose. So we agree there. 22nd, though, they've got this pure toss between Brandon Williams and Francis Cannole. I currently have Brandon Williams winning by about 2%. So, we essentially agree here. Going over to New York 3, that's a race that I have as lean Democratic. They've got Josh Lafazan, I believe. Yeah, Josh Lafazan beating George Santos. Santos ran in 2020. He was their candidate back then. Didn't really do too well, but again, he didn't really have any money, so it's hard to judge that performance. And so, I think this race will be pretty close, but I've got the Democrats up by a bit more than they do. New York 1, not too much to talk about there. I think New York 11 is the only other semi-competitive race, but I don't know where they have it. Oh, well, they gave okay, interesting. Rose is still running there, but he's going to get destroyed because his seat was originally drawn to be like a Biden plus 9 seat, and then they redistricted it because the maps were unfair and they overturned it. Pennsylvania, next state we're going to there. First, starting off with the 17th district, they have Chris DeLujo beating Jeremy Schaefer, which is interesting because I have DeLujo losing, although, again, this is a toss-up race. They go to his lean Democratic, so I think that's pretty interesting. When you go to Pennsylvania 8, they have a pure toss-up, but Matt Cartwright favored over Jim Bognett. And I just want to say, or I think it's Bonnet, and I just want to say, that is very surprising to me. Matt Cartwright is in a Trump plus 3 district that Biden did do better than Clinton there, so it's not like super right trending, but it is a seat that's very working class, very white, and is, conventionally trending towards Republicans. They're doing better than they used to because of Donald Trump. And Trump did win this seat twice, and it's a midterm where there are, as we all know, the national environment's likely to be more favorable to Republicans than 2020 or even 2016 was. So the fact that, Cartwright's a very good incumbent, he gives the Democrats a fighting chance here, but I really don't like this call because I think Cartwright's going to end up losing, going to get caught up in that red wave, because I think that the logic with Cartwright being good incumbent is that good incumbents are good incumbents till they're really not good incumbents. And I know it sounds kind of stupid, but think about it. Like when you think of Barbara Comstock in Virginia 10, and she held Democratic seats until 2018, where she just got caught up in the blue wave, and then 2020 wasn't a red wave, but Colin Peterson, Trump just destroyed him with all his rural turnout he got in Minnesota. So, Colin Peterson and Barbara Comstock are two examples of that. Matt Cartwright is in a Trump seat. He's a very strong incumbent. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't see him holding on here. Susan Wild, they have losing to Lisa Scheller. I agree with this. I think she'll lose by, similar amount to Cartwright, although she is in a bluer district. She's just not as good of an incumbent. And then lastly, I think the APA one, the APA one is safe for Fitzpatrick. Nothing too interesting there. I'm actually pretty interested that they have, okay. Oh, yeah, okay, interesting. So they only really have 3 competitive seats in Pennsylvania that you could make the argument for 4 or 5, although, again, I agree. Maryland here, they have a very close race here between Neil Parrott and David Trone, which is interesting because I just don't have Parrott getting the nomination in this district for the Republicans. I have Matt Foldy getting that nomination in Maryland 6. I have him losing to David Trone. This is interesting because this is a Biden plus 10 seat. This is not a super, right trending, narrow Biden seat. So I think the Democrats are going to hold on to it by a couple points. Virginia, I've got takes here. So first, Virginia 10, Jennifer Wexton beating Hung Kao. I agree with that. I think she'll win pretty easily. Then Virginia 7, Spanberger beating Yesli Vega. Again, I agree. I think Spanberger is going to narrowly edge it out. So I like this call. Then in Virginia 2, Jen Kagan's beating Elaine Luria. I've got it as lean Republican. They've got it as lean Republican. So we're pretty good on Virginia. North Carolina 13, they've got as lean Republican. I've got as lean Republican. Bo Hines is a pretty good candidate for the Republicans, former football player. I think he'll do very well here and win by a lead margin. North Carolina 1 is the other competitive district. North Carolina, Don Davis, Sandy Smith. I think Davis is going to win by 4 or 5 points. North Carolina 6, North Carolina 14. These are all pretty solid for the Democrats, although again, it is I think worth making sure, because these seats are kind of, like, they're likely Democratic seats that could in theory flip if the red wave is massive, but again, it's not likely. It's kind of the equivalent of the Democrats beating French Hill in Arkansas, or winning the Montana House seat last year. Like, they're seats that are tests, because if there's a massive blue wave, they'll flip, or a massive wave, they'll flip, but not really. Florida, looking at where's Maria Elvira Salazar's district? I think that's the 25th or 26th. I think it's the 26th. There was the seat the DMP held. I'm trying to find this for 28. Oh yeah, here we go. Florida 27. They only give Annette Taddeo a 4% chance of winning, which I think is interesting, because it's a seat that voted for Trump by literally 0.2%. It's incredibly close. The Republicans are probably going to win it, but Taddeo's a very good candidate, and I think she'll make it a lot closer than this. I think she'll win, lose by 11 instead of 17 or 15 or whatever they're suggesting. Alabama, the Deep South, not much going on there. They've got Bishop winning, obviously. Texas, let's talk about Texas 15. They have this race decently close between Michelle Vallejo, who's a progressive Democrat, taking on Monica de la Cruz, the Republican. This would be a Republican gain, because again, this seat is currently held by Vicente Gonzalez, but again, they're redistricting it to make it a bit redder. It's a Trump plus 3 seat now. So, again, it's a seat that I have as likely Republican. I don't think it'll be that contested. I think the Democrats are going to kind of pull out of that district, because the trends there are just so bad for them in South Texas. But they only have the Democrats losing it by 3.2%. I think it'll be closer to a 6 or 7 point margin for the GOP. Cuellar's district, the 28th district, right here. They have Cuellar favored by a little bit over Cassie Garcia, but I think Garcia is a good candidate for the district. She has worked on multiple campaigns. She worked with Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. I think she's going to narrowly beat out Henry Cuellar in this district. Texas 34. This is again Mayra Flores, Vicente Gonzalez. They're both incumbents. Gonzalez comes from the 15th district. Flores comes from the old the district that was Biden plus. She won a Biden plus 7 seat just because turnout fell off. Like, this is a very low turnout election, so she's incumbent, but not really. Although in fairness, sorry, I forget his name. Vicente Gonzalez did carpet bag to this district, so it'll be fairly close. I expect Gonzalez to win by 4, 5, 6%, somewhere in that range. But yeah, New Mexico. Kind of my hotter take is that Gabe Vasquez is going to beat Yvette Herrell here. This is a Biden plus 60. They've got his leading Republican. I've got this as a toss-up race, but I think the Democrats, if I had to make a hot take of the video, I'd say the Democrats are going to flip this seat. Yeah, Herrell's not a good incumbent, and the seat, like you'd think since it's rural Hispanic, it would be rightward trending, but Biden only did 0.2% worse than Hillary Clinton. It doesn't really move a ton. And in his 2020 Senate run, Mark Ronchetti only lost this seat by about, or he still lost the seat by 3.5%. So, and 2020 Ronchetti was a pretty good performance. Now, in the gubernatorial election, I think Ronchetti is very likely to win this, because I think Ronchetti is going to run, essentially with Michelle Lujan Grisham statewide. It's a very close race. Read my piece on that, by the way. It's at uepoit.substack.com. Go to that address and read my most recent article about New Mexico governor. But yeah, like I really do think that this is going to be a tight race, tighter than they're suggesting. New Mexico 3, Teresa Legar Fernandez. She's a pretty good incumbent. I think she'll hold off Alexis Martinez Johnson here, and then this seat's essentially safe for the Democrats. Arizona, we've got a few seats there that are competitive. Greg Stanton's district, the 4th district, suburban Biden plus 10 seat. Shouldn't be too much of a problem for Democrats, but I think they're going to win it by 4 or 5. It could get, could flip if there's a big enough red wave, but I don't really think it's going to happen after this Dobbs ruling. Arizona 2, Tom O'Halloran, the incumbent, he got drawn into a Trump plus 8 seat. Not looking too good for him. You got to respect him for running in a red wave year where he's not going to be doing too well, but yeah, he's probably going to lose by, probably double digits, to be honest with you. Arizona, where is Schweikert's district? That is let me find that. There it is. They only give the Democrats a 5% chance of winning. This is a seat that, voted for Biden by about a point. It was incredibly close, but I personally think the Democrats not going to win it, but I think they'll probably crack 44, 45% of the vote here. So yeah, let's wrap it up here. I forgot Illinois. We'll talk about Illinois too. And actually, we haven't done this column. Okay, here. Well, don't worry. I won't ostracize these other states. So All right, let's start with Kansas. So in Kansas, Sharice Davids is currently favored to lose in the most left-trending seat in the country. That's pretty, that's pretty interesting. I think Davids in a pure toss-up race. They've got to lean Republican, but I wouldn't be so sure in such a left-trending area with Laura Kelly on the ballot to boost Democratic turnout. Iowa, Cindy Axne right now favored to lose to Zach Nunn. I agree with that. Lean, these two races are likely. Iowa 3 is lean. So I agree with that. Indiana, they've got Mervin beating out Jennifer Ruth Green. Mervin's a good incumbent. It is a Republican trending seat. It's like if the red wave is big enough, you could kind of talk me into it. But Mervin's just, to me, too good of an incumbent to lose this year. Michigan, that's got 3, maybe 4 competitive House races this year. So first you got Michigan 10, which isn't even actually, I don't have a competitive, but they've got as lean Republican. I think it'll be likely. They currently have John James winning this race by 4.4%, which I think is fairly reasonable. I think he'll win by a little more, although Carl Malinga is a really good candidate for the area. Michigan 11, there's an interesting primary there between Haley Stevens and Andy Levin, but the general election should be pretty solid for the Democrats. And Michigan 7, Alyssa Slotkin, she has a 53% chance of beating Tom Barrett. That's really interesting to me because I think Barrett is going to win this race by a couple points. It's only Biden plus 2 or Biden plus 3. It was very close in 2020, and it's very reliant on Lansing turnout, which I think is kind of unreliable for Democrats. Michigan 8, Dan Killey. They go out as lean Democrat. I think Killey's going to lose. The seat actually trended right relative to the country between 2016 and 2020. Trump did pretty well there. John James did actually run behind Donald Trump here by quite a bit. So, despite the fact that John James ran ahead statewide in Michigan, but I really do think that Michigan 8 is going to be a Republican pickup here, although Nate Silver thinks otherwise. Then lastly, Michigan 3. They go to this is the take that I really can't get behind because, first of all, Peter Meijer, I don't even think Peter Meijer wins his primary, but even if he does, he's in kind of a toss-up race. So this is a Biden plus 8 seat. And as we know, Gretchen Whitmer did a lot better than Biden statewide. But Biden did better than Gretchen Whitmer here. You know why? Because it's that left trending. It is so left trending that Joe Biden, despite running 8 points behind Gretchen Whitmer statewide, did better than her in this district because it's that left trending. John James did better than Donald Trump here by quite a bit, but again, it's a seat that's more down ballot Republican, which gives the Republicans a fighting chance here. But yeah, this is a super left-trending seat, and I really think the Democrats are going to pick it up, even if Peter Meijer does get the nomination, but I have him losing to John Gibbs in that primary. So likely Republican, I think it's kind of a ludicrous rating, to be honest with you. Wisconsin, Ron Kinzold seat, Wisconsin 3. I think the Democrats are going to lose by even more there. Minnesota, Angie Crave, they got that as lean Democratic. That's, to me, that's quite interesting. She is, I think she's in pure toss-up territory. I think she's narrowly favored, but winning by, they got her winning by over 4%. That to me is very interesting. It's quite a bold call there. Illinois, go to Illinois 17. That's a pure toss-up race in my eyes and their eyes too. Esther Joy King and Eric Sorensen. Again, I think to me, neither of these candidates are really that good for either party, especially Esther Joy King because she did lose a Trump seat in 2020. And I don't think she's, anything special, but I do think she'll, be in a position to pick off this race just because it'll be such a competitive seat. But yeah, I'm glad they agree that as a toss-up. Illinois 6, Sean Casten likely to beat Keith Peckow. I think he'll win by a bit more, to be honest. And Illinois, where is the 13th district? Here we go. Illinois 13, the Democrats likely to pick off that seat. Yeah, I'm glad that they have it as likely Democrat, as do I. Nebraska, Don Bacon, they have him as likely Republican. Here's my hot take. If they go out and losing by 10 to Tony Vargas, Vargas is state senator. He's a good candidate. Bacon's a very good incumbent. Don't get me wrong. This seat is very left trending. I think that when you look at it, it's very easy to make the case that it'll be very close. I think Bacon's only going by 2 or 3 as opposed to 10. So again, these left trending seats, I really think that the Democrats are going to do better in a lot of left trending areas than people expect. Nevada, they got 3 toss-up races there. They've got the 4th and the 1st with Horsford and Titus as lean Democratic. I agree, but they have Susie Lee seat as a pure toss-up between her and April Becker, although I do have Becker narrowly edging it out, although it is a toss-up, so very close. Can't really disagree with them too much on a toss-up race. Washington 8 with Kim Schreier. They've got her winning against Reagan Dunn, which I find very interesting to me. I find that very interesting because I have Schreier losing by about a point. This is a seat that did vote for Biden by 7%. It voted for Hillary Clinton too. You have to remember, down ballot is what matters a little more here because down ballot, it's a very Republican seat. Kim Schreier is a bad incumbent, and I think she's going to go down this election cycle. And then when you look at the other races, Washington 6 should be likely, and then Washington 3, they've got Jamie Herrera Butler winning re-election or winning her primary against Joe Kent. Oregon, they have McLeod Skinner losing to Lori Chavez de Remer, which I find interesting because this is, this seat is Biden plus 9. It's actually voted to the left of Washington 8. And there's no incumbent here, and I think this is an incumbent heavy model. But McLeod Skinner is from a left running seat. She did very well in the primary against an incumbent, and I think she has the energy behind her. So personally, I do think that the Democrats are going to narrowly hold on to this seat because of Ron Wyden's statewide performance. That's really the only reason. Then they have Oregon 6 is likely. Salinas, this is a new seat. It should be a Democratic pickup. And then the 4th, they also have that as likely, although Alex Carlatos is a good candidate for the GOP. California, wrapping up here. California 3, Kevin, Kylie, Kermit Jones. I think it's an underrated matchup. I have it only as R plus 5 because I think it'll be fairly close. Closer than people think. It's a left-running district, and I think that the Republicans aren't going to do too well in California this year. So I think that seat could be a little close. But again, likely Republicans a fair rating. Talking about the 9th, Josh Harder, carved back to that district. I think he'll be fine. Although the 13th, they've got it as lean Democratic. I think it'll be really close between Adam Gray and John Duarte. Probably a 2 or 3 point Democratic margin. They have it as lean D as well. Go to the Central Valley, California 22. This is a pure toss-up between Rudy Salas, the state senator, and David Valadao, a Republican incumbent. He is going to have a hard time holding on. It's a Biden plus 13 district, and the Democrats in California did very well in the primary here. Salas got almost 46% of the vote in the primary, and David Valadao barely beat his Republican challenger. So I think that the Democrats are going to narrowly pick off the seat, although, again, it is a pure, one of the most prolific races of the year. Another one is California 27, Mike Garcia, Christy Smith. I think Christy Smith can beat Mike Garcia, guys. I think she's running a better campaign this time. She is in a Biden plus 13 seat. She did very well in the primary. Garcia only got about 50.3% of the vote in the primary, so he did get the majority. But again, primaries in California are very favorable to Republicans, whereas the general is much more favorable to Democrats. A good stat that I like to bring up is that in the California 21 primary in 2018, where the Democrats flipped that critical House seat in the Central Valley, the Republicans ended up winning the primary by 22%, and they lost the seat by about a point. That just goes to show how much these primaries in California inflate GOP support. And Garcia is only at 51%, Valadao is only at 54%. If that trend is even close to where it was in 2018, I think the Republicans are doomed in California, in both California 22 and California 27. As of right now, I think they're both toss-ups with Valadao and Garcia, although I think I have them narrowly both losing to Rudy Salas and Christy Smith, respectively. Going over to our next seat, California 45, Michelle Steele. I think she's going to do very well. I think she'll beat Jay Chen by 5 or 6% instead of this 2% margin they're projecting. California 47, Katie Porter. I think she's a very good incumbent, underrated actually in my eyes. I do believe she'll win this race. California 9 with Mike Levin. Mike Levin is a strong incumbent too. I've got this as likely Democratic. I think he'll win by a similar margin, maybe a little smaller, but again, don't disagree too much here. California 41, Ken Calvert, he was originally a safe Republican race. The primary was very good for him, or was very bad for him, though, so I moved down to likely. I think he'll win by this amount. Fair projection here. They have California 40 as very solid for young Kim. I think it's interesting because Kim is in a Biden plus 2 seat. So, again, she's definitely favored. I think she'll do very well here this November, but again, she's still in opposing territory. Still got to remember that. So I think that's worth talking about. But again, I don't disagree that she'll win. I just think she'll win by a little less. So that's it. We kind of did speed run the House map here. I think I'm actually pretty proud of that because I kind of went through every race and just talked about it for like 30 seconds, moved on, talked about where I agree, where I disagree. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. It's kind of like just a longer video. I just, kind of went through here. But again, hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye, guys.